you. So hello from my side as well. I'm Reet Kasapalu from the Estonian Academy of Security Sciences, from Rescue College, from the Civil Protection Research and Development Center. We're not going to then go into introduction rounds, but you can see nicely on the screen that we have 4 very interesting panelists from 4 different countries, and as already introduced, from then looking at resilience from different perspectives as well. But before we actually start talking about resilience, which one part is also that even when it rains, you can still have a party. Resilience, exactly. And tents come in handy. So you just need to have the right tools, and life can go on. But so you should have, or at least your neighbor has such a sign, and these are meant to totally engage you, yeah, because we don't want you to just chillax and listen, but we would like you to think and express your opinion. So the idea is very simple. So either there's going to be a statement, and you have to decide whether you agree with the statement or disagree. Yes, someone said. Yeah, thank you. So if it's a statement, you just decide. And the answer, it depends on blah, 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 then that's not an option. Agree, disagree, yeah? And it's just that you make up your mind at this particular moment. It is not going to be assessed in any way, or it is going to be recorded, though, I understand. But you know, I don't think there are going to be very long-term consequences from this. And sometimes, I think twice, I'm also going to give you a fact, or not a fact. Well, then let's say a fact, and then I want you to say whether you think it's true or false. Yeah. So, so this is your way of then kind of starting to think about the topic. Another way of you thinking about the topic is, of course, you listening in and asking questions, which you are invited to do by raising your hand. And Kadri will run to you with the microphone, and we're going to have a splendid discussion following that. Yeah. So you don't have to wait until the end, but whenever you feel that you have a resilience-related question, then let's have a go at it. Okay, so that much for administrative issues. Yes. So let's see whether we have understood the use of the utensils. Yes, she agreed. Very good. So I'm going to give you a definition of resilience, or a statement about resilience, and I would like you to then decide whether you agree with the statement or not. Yes? You have 7 seconds or so to make up your mind. Yeah? All right? We are ready? The goal of resilience is to return to normal as quickly as possible. One more time. The goal of resilience is to return to normal as quickly as possible. 6, 7. Yes. No, there's no. Sorry. Yeah. I have an 8-year-old, so I know. Sorry for that. 7 seconds is not a good number. All right. So there was a lot of red, some green. So maybe Jana can start about opening up and then thinking about and telling us when returning to normal might be too limited when talking about resilience.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Jana Wrange and I'm a political scientist from Lund University. And yeah, I think most of you the question of how to define resilience is it's a challenging one for everyone, and especially in academic field where quite a lot of research now is kind of focusing on what do we mean by resilience. And kind of in terms of talking about resilience, you usually go by 3 characteristics. You have persistence, adaptability, and transformation. And these are kind of not mutually exclusive dynamics. And resilience is kind of seen as not this fixed state, but an ongoing process. So we keep always building resilience, and this really context specific. And I think that's a really important point here now that we have 4 countries represented, and we're going to talk about more specific practical examples that how context-specific and dependent resilience really is, and like who are we talking about, what's the referent object, and what's the situation. So just like kind of going from that into a security field, which we all want to talk about today, security politics, then resilience has become this really center concept in security politics these days. And I'm sure everyone has heard about building resilience and how important it is today with hybrid threats and geopolitical situation. The way that states go about it vary. In the Swedish context, we have a policy area that's called total defense in general, and then we have the civilian side of it. This is more specifically then concentrating on building resilience in society through civilian means. And within the civil defense policy area, of course, we concentrate on different levels of society, different sectors of society, and engaging whole of society to kind of play a part in national defense. And this resilient thinking, kind of in terms of security, what it has done is also that quite a lot of security policies now also focus not only on external threats and reaction to threats, but also internal vulnerabilities, and trying to become more proactive in building that resilience. And I think, soon we're going to go into more specific examples on how different states go about it. Yeah.
Okay, so the idea is then to really look at how this resilience is enforced, or how is it visible in practice. So let's share how in different national contexts in Estonia, in Finland, in Sweden, and in the Netherlands. So what is resilience in the Netherlands? Charlotte, you picked up the...
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Charlotte van Ruiven, and I'm a program manager for the Netherlands Institute for Public Safety. And I'm the leader of the national pilot on resilience hubs, basically. We call them emergency support hubs. For us, in the Netherlands, resilience started from the defense perspective. Really raising the awareness that we have to act and we have to work on this topic. But it's shifting now to a civil protection topic, and that's quite a change in how to make it approachable for everybody, for the people. And that's something we do with this pilot, that we are really trying out different forms of these hubs to see how to raise the awareness but also raise the preparedness. So there's, in the Netherlands, we started with a communication, like really a leaflet, how to be prepared with the kids in the home, but also one thing that is even more important than having enough water, food, or some these things in the house. It's also about knowing what to do, what kind of, who's picking up the kids, for example, when you're in a different place and the kids are still at school. So it's not only about having enough water, having enough food, but also raising the awareness what to do when it actually happens. So that's one part, like the communication part that we are doing in the Netherlands now. And we were working on these hubs. So try to make people aware of the situation, and not only about the war actually, because that's one specifics, but we're also facing more threats because of climate change, floods, rain that makes cities flood also. So there are different risks that we are preparing for actually.
Yes, Mika wants to talk about how it's done in Finland.
Yes. Well, hello all. My name is Mika Lehesto, and I come from the Ministry of the Interior and from the Rescue Department. And we got into the individual's resilience, and one of my colleagues once said very well that resilience starts at home, that begins at home. A safe environment at home, also the communities nearby, and those are the key elements. Resilience starts at home, and its strength up in communities. So this is one of the ways how I'm looking at through my project. I'm a project manager in the information for citizens in emergency situations. And of course in Finland we have one thing which is our eastern border, 1,340 kilometers with Russia. So this is one point that we might be somehow prepared, and we remember what happened 8 years ago. But of course resilience is at all levels. It's individuals, self-preparedness, societies, organizations, and government level, and even international level. And we have to understand its preparedness, and it's also its ability to stand and through crisis, and adjust to crisis, and even learn from them.
Yes, and in Estonia?
Hello everyone, my name is Erkki Põld. I'm working in Estonian Rescue Service Agency, and I'm a head of rescue department. And in Estonia, of course, we are dealing with resilience similar like other countries, and it's really important to building resilience in whole society on different levels. As we heard already, everything starts from citizen perspective and individual preparedness. And in Estonia, we since 2022 start to increasing campaigns to reach the people. We are teaching the kids, making different programs for different people from different perspective, and our goal to increase resilience in Estonia and society. And our statistics are showing that step by step it's increased since 2022. Actually, a lot of people in Estonia start thinking about safety more, about war issues, war threats, and more people are starting to prepare for crises and start to building resilience. And but these steps are too slow, as we can see, because usually people think, oh, I will buy supplies tomorrow, or I have other things to do, or I need to, I don't know, buy a new refrigerator, I don't have money, and it's not like everyday issue what people think about. That's why it's important to speak with the people about that, how important that is to build preparedness and resilience. And our statistics show that since last half of year, approximately 70% of people did something to build preparedness and to buy some supplies at their house, etc. But still fully prepared in Estonia, only 11% of population for crises. That means that they have all supplies, they know how to, what to do, where they got information, etc., etc. But around 70% of people in Estonia partly prepared for crises, and approximately 26% don't interested at this topic at all and don't do nothing to increase preparedness. And also it's really important to increase the resilience in vital services, on community level, on the governmental level, but also we need to talk more about businesses, because businesses should also build their resilience, because it's also really important, of course, for the owners, for the companies, to have ability to work during crises, during war times. Nowadays we can learn a lot from Ukraine experience, and we can see that a lot of businesses increase their ability to work during wartime. They are well trained, and I think it's like good opportunity for us, for our countries, to use this, how to say it, like open window in time frame, that we can have this ability to increase our resilience and preparedness during the peacetime. So now we need to act now, because you never know, maybe it will be not possible anymore, because preparedness built only in peacetime, when it's everything okay, because when crisis happen, then you're too late.
Then you're responding already.
Yes.
Then it's not called preparedness. So how has Sweden prepared?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, since 2015, Sweden has re-established its total defense doctrine, and one of the sides is civil defense. And quite a lot of things have happened, and I think the development has been rapid since the war in Ukraine, of course. But it was already mentioned, the brochures. This is like a historical tradition in Sweden to have these large public information campaigns, sending pamphlets to households, which Sweden has done already during the Cold War times, but has now returned to. And this is kind of the way to inform and strengthen individual preparedness on the individual level. One of the really interesting aspects about resilience, and that I think we have to really talk about as well, is resilience is really political. There are political decisions to where to allocate resources, there are decisions to be made, what are the things that have to, become resilient, and who are the ones to do it. And in the Swedish example, I think one of significant steps in this kind of political sphere is that Sweden also has now a ministerial portfolio for a minister for civil defense. when with the new government shift in 2022, the civil defense topics moved back to the Ministry of Defense from Ministry of Justice, and there was also created a ministerial position for Minister for Civil Defense. And this is a significant thing because this kind of brings always resilience questions to the table when you have a minister that speaks to this part of total defense coin, and has been kind of used as a good example for other countries as well, to how to make resilience topics more visible on political level. And then what Sweden has also done is we have also re-established our agency for psychological defense to work specifically with foreign information manipulation and interference, and population's willingness to defend the country. This again is historically, it was Sweden has had the agency historically as well, and now the decision was to re-establish it again. And this is also kind of an example of how in Europe it's only 2 countries that have this kind of agencies. France has one as well. How Sweden is trying to build resilience, specifically also in the information domain, kind of doing really targeted educational programs and trainings in this sphere. And then I think finally, you mentioned the public-private relationship, and this is a big part of Swedish total defense as well, public-private relationships, and trying to kind of establish agreements with private sector companies that are essential for the function of society in a crisis situation. So this work is also ongoing, and for that also the ministerial position for Minister for Civil Defense is important, because he can through the committee that they've created meet with public companies to discuss, exchange information and discuss the needs, and hopefully reach individual agreements with different companies.
Oh, in the Netherlands, we happily borrowed your leaflet, personal leaflet thing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. So there's no agency for psychological defense other than in Sweden and in France, yeah? But what about in other countries? Is psychological defense still something that you work with, touch upon, or not yet?
Not in big numbers yet, but the awareness of being also a target for fake news and all these things, it's becoming more and more, and also in children education, and still being able to go to social media as kids. So we have this topic, yes.
Want to?
Yeah. Well, we don't have psychological defense department or ministry or anything, but there was mentioned the whole of society principle, and we have our own version. It's called comprehensive security, and it's based on that. Well, as you all know, we are a small country, and we have a wide continent. So and we have a small authorities, and so we have to cooperate with each other, and this is the one thing which is building up the resilience also. It's the same, are you a policeman, firefighter, emergency technician, or work in the defense forces, but basically you know your each other's habits, what are you doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but now when we think about the first question that, or not the statement that I gave the audience, is that the goal of resilience is to return to normal as quickly as possible. So do the panelists agree or disagree?
Yeah, I just want to point out that like what's normal, but also kind of the transformative aspect of resilience. Like the goal is also that you learn and adapt, and from that experience you kind of go forward. So there is a new normal then, I guess. So I don't think we should talk about resilience in terms of what is normal and what is not, or resilience you either have it or not. It's an ongoing process, and it's a degree to which you are reaching resilience, or at least you can strengthen your resilience capacity. And also it's really important to kind of think that resilience kind of also is expressed once something has happened. And usually when we speak about resilience, we can actually assess it once the disruption has already happened, and then you can do an assessment on whether we were resilient or not, or to what degree. So quite a lot of the things that we're discussing today, or in general in societies, are all about the capacity, because this is what we want to kind of do. We want to build resilience capacity, that once the situation becomes a real shock or crisis scenario, we have the capacity at least to show some resilience. So this is also, I think, one way to make resilience more concrete is to, instead of always talking about building resilience, let's talk about what are the capacities, what are the capabilities we can build to become resilient, or to show resilience once the situation requires that. And I think this would kind of make resilience talks more practical and more graspable, because this conversation of kind of really abstract level concepts, I think, doesn't really bring us anywhere. So one of the things that I think is really important when we talk about resilience, that we would also kind of specify that we talk about resilience capacity, and what are these capacities then are. We have the function, we want the vital services to function in a situation of crisis. What are the capabilities you need to develop for this to happen, or at least to make it happen? You want to protect the civilian population. What are the specific capabilities that you need to at least have the chance to protect as many as possible in the situation, and so on. And this is also goes to the point when how do you measure resilience, and what are the indicators? So yeah.
Well, I agree with you. I think it's not about bouncing back, it's about bouncing forward. And what do you need for that, actually?
Yeah, COVID is one of examples, because after COVID pandemic, the world is changed, and it's really important that we learn from crises and we adapt. We change maybe our mindset. We build again and again our preparedness for next crises. So it's really important to go forward.
Can I just say, I also think COVID was a great example of how we don't learn, because the narrative kind of often was also that, life goes back to normal, just what you said, which, in resilience terms, it should be no, life has transformed. And I think with COVID, you can also see that how important the learning aspect of resilience is. If we think of resilience as a crisis management cycle, you prepare, you respond, and then you recover, and then you also actually learn or try to implement what you have learned. And I think in many cases, yes, COVID was a game changer, and I think a lot of the areas in society have transformed thanks to it, or at least are continuously trying to transform. But then there are also aspects where we know that there are lessons to be learned, but the implementation area, like you actually have to implement these lessons and have for them to have a deeper impact. And this often requires also a really deep change, structural change in how organizations work, or what's the to actually change the culture or change the mindset. And this is also connected to kind of this resilience talk that in Sweden and also in other countries, we talk a lot about what needs to happen is also this mindset change. Because Sweden, there's this saying that, when preparing for war, you go by experience, and Sweden doesn't have it in recent history. And then how to kind of make it happen that the society has this mindset change, that you have the preparedness mindset. And this is something that is, I know Denmark is working quite hard on, Norway is working a lot of, and Sweden as well. You want to have a mindset change, and this has to be, towards preparedness, that preparedness aspects become, cultural, that as a culture you're already prepared. And this is something where Swedes can learn quite a lot from Baltic countries, for example, because they're the mindset, or, you know, where also national strategic cultures play a big role. If you have, you know, people in Finland with my forest, and people are kind of self-sustainable in so many ways. This, you know, it's a cultural thing already. So you already have, you're already, you know, degree more resilient in that self-sufficiency terms. Yeah.
Well, thank you for nice words. But of course, we have still lots to improve, lots to learn, and so on. But to the original question, I agree with the ladies.
But you thank for the compliment. Very good. Yeah. So I think we can move on, and we can agree that the norm, yeah, is. Yeah. Go, Katri, go.
I don't
First
think.
question.
Yes. So I wanted to ask, because we were talking about the quantifiable and like calculative aspects of resilience, but I mean we can have like so many prepared stuff and like, let's say, I don't know, petrol, oil and stuff like that, but then the social aspect can, I think, undermine a lot of the preparedness. So would you say that resilience is more a quantitative or qualitative like aspect?
It's both. You need to have both, because it starts, as many of us already stated, it starts at home. It starts at how prepared are you as a person, as a family, as your street or your apartment building or the village you live in. But we need to do both, because from a national perspective there are things we can prepare as a country. So that's what we're also working on, to be prepared as the police, the fire fighters, that we all are prepared in one way. It's all about the continuity of these different things, like if schools can still continue when there's a big power cut, or that the hospitals are still open and available. So it's about these many aspects, and it's a very social thing, because that's what we experience within the pilots that we do for these hubs, that the social network, the social cohesion of a neighborhood, that's the basic. If that's working, if people know each other, then it's so much easier to find each other. For example, we organize these neighborhood meetings, and imagine if somebody rings your door and you don't know that person, then you maybe be a bit scared to open the door. Well, if you already know who that's your neighbor or the person further down the street, or you already know a person that is also a Boy Scout and knows how to start a fire, build a toilet, build a kitchen, then you are much more easy and welcoming. So it starts with the social network. That's the most important thing. But the rest, it will help and make it easier to continue as a society. So it's both worlds. At least that's what we are finding out more and more.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, because it's a big struggle and big question now. How do we measure resilience? And on different levels, how do we actually know if something or somebody has become resilient? And for that, you need some kind of indicators. And there are things that you can quantify. Of course, you can think like from an organizational perspective, or in the Swedish case, for example, with agencies that are responsible for vital services or sectors, societal sectors. You can quantify things on, do they have the plans? Do they have the security of supply to a certain amount? Do they have, how many exercises have they done together? And these are all quantifiable things, and it will give you some kind of indicator of like, if they have kind of gone through all these things, there is some kind of base for resilience, hopefully. Then comes the aspect that you also mentioned, that just the fact that they did the exercise, did they actually learn something? And, you know, did they know how to implement it, as an example? And that for that, you need qualitative assessments. And these qualitative assessments also take time. And this is something the Swedish government right now is also kind of trying to figure out. What can be the indicators? One of the things that municipalities really ask for is also to have some kind of indicators from the government side to give to municipalities. Okay, what is the minimum baseline? Let's, because all the municipalities and regions have their own preconditions. They are really different, and they have, really big differences in resources, both human and financing. And one of the discussions is that how can we create some kind of baseline then, and then let the municipalities or the regions decide how they go about it to kind of reach this at least minimum requirement. So indicators are necessary, but it's a big discussion, both academically and in practice, to what are the right indicators. And I think for that, these kind of international cooperation is really important, that because you can actually, discuss with other countries how do they measure, what are their indicators. But then there's also, of course, the aspect of national context and, population differences and so on.
From organization perspective, I can give, for example of our organization, what we are doing to build resilience and crisis preparedness. Of course, everything starts with analyzing, and it's really important for all organizations, for businesses, vital service providers, to analyze the risk. What is the risks for specifically this organization? What we should do to be prepared for these risks. We need to build the crisis plans. Of course, we need to build like physical preparedness, for example, or our fire stations have generators. We have different fuel supplies. We have tanks, fuel tanks in every fire stations. We have alternative communication systems. We build everything to be able to provide services for population during different crises, and it's our goal. And now we are much more prepared than before. And also it's really important to all the firefighters, all the personnel in our organization need to be prepared in their families. For example, if some huge crisis happen, for example, war, and my family, my relatives, my kids or my parents need help, they are not prepared, then probably I will unable to work at this time because I need to take care of my relatives. So it's really, and we teach our staff to make a family plan, crisis plan, what we will do in different situations when there is power outrages or we need to evacuate, where we will go, what we will take with us, who will take care of pets, etc., etc., etc. So it's really important to plan at the family level, at the citizen level, but on organization level. And next step, it's also the trainings. For example, we do every year, we are checking generators in our fire stations. And we all the time assume that everything is work. But no, every year testing shows that there is a lot of failures. If we are making some crisis plans, then they are totally useless if only a few person in organization know the crisis plan and they just write to hold in the desk because someone told that we need to do. You cannot build resilience if you are not implement it in everyday life. In organization, all organization important that all the staff knows what to do, where to go in different situations. They need to be drilled and trained systematically. Then we can build this resilience.
And it's in the big things, but it's also in the small things. And that's why practice and really going through these risks is very important. For example, everything is digital. So the crisis plan was digital. If you don't have power, then it's quite hard to reach the plan. So that are these details that you're also finding out by practicing them and really experience what's happening and what are all the things that you're running into.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
It seems that we are closing to that individual level again, and it's quite hard to measure. You can always measure how many cans of tuna some person has in his closet or hers, but can this person recycle them so that they don't get old? Does she have any skills how to open the can and so on? So it's not just measurable things and stuff and fuel and batteries and so on. It's also self-preparedness is skills and knowledge, and this is what makes it quite complicated. If we take bunch of persons, then we have a thing called group, and it has its own weaknesses and own strengths, and this is one way how resilience builds in different kind of communities, societies, even in a neighborhood. And when we talk a really large group of people, we can talk about the society.
Mm-hmm. So now I have a quantifiable-ish true or false statement. So, Estonia, Finland, Sweden, and the Netherlands all recommend the same minimum period of household self-sufficiency. So that is the statement. Now you need to decide whether it's true or false. So whether the baseline... Very good, very creative. Mm-hmm. So almost all of you think that it's not the case. So does anyone know? Can they share that? Yeah, I know that there and there. How long do we need to be self-sufficient in Estonia? 30 days. Erki, do you wish to come?
7 days, yeah. Our guidelines says that 7 days should be prepared and have everything what you need. You need to have a cash, water, food, alternative communications, generators, etc., etc. So raise a hand who have Ole Valmis app. Oh, great, good. Who don't have, please download it now, and you can start read it in different languages. And there is a really good guidelines how to be prepared, how to be resilient, and how to act in different crises.
Yeah. So in Estonia, it's 7 days. In Sweden, does anyone know? Jana, do you know? It's the same, yeah. So in Estonia and Sweden, it's 7 days. How much is it in the Netherlands? You don't know? No. 72 hours, yeah. And it's the same in Finland. Yes.
Yes, that's correct. But I have to admit it's kind of a compromise.
Okay. A compromise?
Compromise, yes.
Okay, what do you mean?
It's easier to achieve than a week, and we are more hopeful that more people will prepare.
Okay, so make it easier, like
yes,
baby steps. Then
baby steps, and otherwise, as I told, that authorities work together. It has been calculated that it's enough to people to manage 3 days, then the authorities can put their strength into those who are in vulnerable position, and after that they can come and help others.
Okay, so this is the strategy for Finland. So why then do Estonia and Sweden think that their citizens are so much more capable that we need to do it for 7 days?
I think that it's really important to make understanding in citizens that in crisis there is quite big chance that you will not have a help from authorities for different reasons, especially if we are talking about large crises, wartime, then probably there will be a gap in services and people need to be prepared. And even nowadays in peacetime, sometimes we have power outrages which lasts more than 7 days. For example, in 2017 in southeast Estonia, a few years ago in Saaremaa and Hiiumaa during winter time when there were snowstorm. So it could happen. It could happen during, I don't know, cyber attack, etc., etc. So it's like strong signal from government to people that you should be prepared for the worst case scenario.
Maybe you want to comment on the 30 days? There's a question. Yeah, Kadri. No. Right behind you. You're good.
Hi, thank you for the interesting information. I'm Italian. I'm telling you this because I don't have the faintest idea of the days of preparation in my country. Maybe because we have pasta, pizza, and cappuccino like for months. But yes. But I'm gonna play, if you don't mind, here the devil's advocate, because for what I understand, usually resilience is the reaction to bounce back from a trauma or from a very critical situation. So my question for you is this: aren't you a little bit sometimes afraid when you think about of these things that preparing societies for very difficult situation can turn a society a little bit into a sort of society of panic, of fear, of maybe being too ready for something that, of course, can happen, but it's not sure 100%.
Yeah, I think that sometimes we may be afraid of things that we don't know. But I think in building resilience and crisis preparedness, it's also one of the safety area. For example, every one of us used in fire safety. We build the buildings which can hold the fire. We put extinguishers, we put smoke detectors, and we agreed with that. And it's like everyday normal life for us, because we would like to live in safe environment. And building resilience, it's same. We are just, nowadays we are not afraid of fire. Yes, we know that it could happen, but we do some prevention work. Same in crises. If we should not be afraid of that, but we need to be prepared for that. Probably it will not happen, but if happen, then I will be prepared for that, just like fire safety.
I have two things. One is I have an example for preparedness, what Erkki just said, and the other thing is planning. But preparedness is, for example, when you are driving or you are a passenger in the car, you wear the seat belt. Automatically you put it on. You don't put it on because I'm going to crash right now in this drive. And something about planning, it's difficult, but it's linked to preparedness. And it might be possible that the plans don't work. But the whole idea of the planning, it's not a project, it's a process. And people who are doing it, they are speaking about same things and same language, using same terms. So if the plan doesn't hold, they can quickly adjust and adapt to the situation.
Yes, and there's the saying that when you make a crisis plan, then the plan goes to dust. But if there's no plan, everything goes.
Can I also comment on that? I think great question, and again, a lot of discussions also academically talking about it. What's the danger of kind of adapting resilience logic into security policy or security studies? And that's one of the main arguments there as well, that you're kind of creating this panic societies, and that can backfire because a whole of society approaches are built on the fact that everyone's going to play their role. But if people panic, that can turn into them trying to save themselves, and the whole plan of having the whole of society being involved in defense can then fall short. I think a good example about the panic thing is the leaflet, the brochure, if crisis or war comes. And in Swedish context, like I mentioned, it's an historical thing. It used to happen. It started during the Second World War, and then during Cold War times, 3 times it was sent out to households and later put into phone books. So older generation in Sweden, they know what it is. And so when the agency that is now called Agency for Civil Defense and Resilience, but back then was the Contingencies Agency, decided to re-establish the tradition and start informing the population in 2018, sending out the same brochure, calling it If Crisis or War Comes. There was, for a moment, a big panic amongst people. And the biggest panic was Estonian media. I remember reading foreign media, and I remember there was something in Estonian media, but also other foreign medias. They were reacting to what does Sweden know that we don't know? Like, why are they starting to prepare people for war? Do they know something that we don't know? And I remember reading these newspaper articles and getting questions about it all the time. Like, what do you know? Like, how come you're like now informing your public to start preparing for war? And I had an interview with a Danish official about it, and they were like, no, in Denmark we're not going to do that because it's going to create panic. We don't want, we are not, we're not going to get attacked, so we're not sending out this brochure. Joke is that they now have, but that was a few years ago. They didn't want to do that, and it was a political thing. Their prime minister went out and said that we are not going to do that because we don't want to create panic. So it has this really tendency to be seen also as a bit of a, like, why are we stressing people? On the other hand, what you can do about it, and it also shows in resilience thinking how important it is to inform and communication and inform people. You always have to inform them. You inform them about the information campaign. You inform them ahead that there's going to be an information campaign. And this kind of transparency and kind of constant knowledge sharing and informing people is a really important part of it, so that you kind of maintain and can control the panic aspect.
Yeah, and if there's something that came out of research about crisis and stuff, that the hunger for information is huge. So the more you already know, the more you know what to do, that helps. Because that point of having information, even though it's a tiny bit, that helps to assure people a lot.
Yeah, and there's another, here also it becomes really important, country's history, and strategic culture in general, because again, in German context, they have discussed this brochure for many, many years, but because of history reasons, they can't really, they don't want to really, nobody wants to take the decision to do the pamphlet. Now they also have, I think, finally come up with one. I don't know if it's has been sent out or not, but recently when I talked to somebody from Germany, they discussed, but it was like for years they tried to, and you have to kind of know the historical context, and also, we haven't talked about it now, but in general, like, what does resilience mean in different countries, conceptually, how it's translated into national, language. We in Sweden talk about civil defense, but that's not, other countries, even in our close neighborhood, don't understand civil defense the way we understand it. For us, it's, an umbrella term for everything civilian and everything resilience related. whereas for many other countries it's connected to Geneva Convention definition or a really specific function or organization of society, and like in a wartime. So there's quite a lot of this conceptual ambiguity as well, which also makes it that we often perhaps talk about the same things, but we don't know that we talk about the same things, or vice versa, that we think that we talk about the same things, but conceptually it's actually a different definition.
Okay, so information, important. Statement for you. The principal weakness in public preparedness is information deficit. If people knew more, they would prepare. So, do you agree or disagree? Yes. So, Kadri, you're holding a red one. So, I would like for some person who's holding a red flag for Kadri to go there, and why? Because the ladies also here just said that information is key. You need to make people aware. So, why not?
Working? No. That's this car thing, like when you put your seatbelts on. Every time when I'm riding a car, so it doesn't matter what information. Does I know that I will crash today? No, but I'm putting seatbelts on. Doesn't matter information that, come on, maybe war starts tomorrow, or maybe the storm starts after 2 hours. Doesn't matter. You have to be prepared. And for this Italian guy, it's like insurance for me. Insurance. Resilience, for me, it's like insurance. You buy insurance for yourself, for your house, for your car. Maybe something happened, then you are covered.
Mm-hmm. So what about you? Is information the main thing that is missing now from people, from them being more prepared?
Our survey shows that in Estonia the knowledge is growing, and with growing knowledge there is a growing preparedness. Of course, there is some people who said, "Oh, yeah, I know, but it's my I decided to not prepare, to not build a resilience." But I think that they are related to each other. So when the knowledge is growing, when you know about the risks, what could happen, then you start automatically to prepare more and think about that.
One thing that comes to my mind is, and this is a thing which I worry most, the large amount of information in crisis, and which is right and which is wrong. So one key to self-preparedness is the media reading skills, and how you can collect the correct and current information from the situations, but this is quite difficult. So it's also, and I want to say to that safety belt comment that preparedness and resilience is also an attitude.
It's also, if you have knowledge how to make CPR, then you're much more resilient and you could give help during crises. For example, if your neighbor or somewhere in need.
There's certainly a correlation between knowledge and preparedness, like kind of. However, it shouldn't be like overestimated, because I think it's also. I think when it comes to, there was an interesting study after the 2018 brochure was sent out in Sweden, that they asked people, like, now that you got the information, did you do something? And many people didn't. So, you know, if you receive information from learning sciences, we already know that too, that you actually have to internalize it and for it to have an impact on your behavior. So I think that is also the thing with knowledge, that yeah, we can inform people, but it doesn't necessarily lead to more action.
It needs practice, you
It
say.
needs practice, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why when you have beginning teachers, and then they say that, oh yeah, I told my students 3 times that they have to do that, just telling people something is not going to make them do anything. How many of you know that drinking beer is bad, but you still do it? Very good. So let's have a beer afterwards. But
it is also quite hard. Like, it's hard to imagine that there's a power cut for weeks. What's happening then? All these things, that cascades, this chain of events that's happening, it's quite hard to imagine. So that is.
So was COVID.
So was COVID, yeah. So that's the good thing about COVID, that it made us aware that these really big events are able to happen, but still it's a very human thing to think about the good things and not so much about the bad things. So these preparations and that being aware, that helps, but still it's quite hard to really imagine that something that big will happen. So that's why it's more and more important to be aware of these things that can happen, and also prepare for the average thing. It's not about you have to only prepare for war. In case of the Netherlands, we had a heat wave. We never had a heat wave this big before, and now we're in a drought period. What happens then? And it's like having a perspective on some kind of action you can do.
Very good. True or false? Is it about? And then we'll have the true and false.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's really inspiring. I would like to connect thinking about resilience from a, let's say, the perspective of the government or institutions, looking at the individual families. I'm very curious, I think Charlotte mentioned it briefly, the role of communities in resilience. And to give an example, I live in a apartment building in Tallinn. We got now a huge generator subsidized by the municipality. It's so heavy you need 3 or 4 people to lift it to the garden and put it on. That's great. But we also got a training. And the training brought all the people in the house together, thinking about, okay, how do we organize shelter in our house? Do we all have our supplies? And the great thing there was that some people who usually don't come to our meetings from the housing association or from the tenants, they showed up and they were curious. So I think that's a good thing. But the thinking more about, and I'm curious about what you see, because in a crisis it can be that the government doesn't play a role. Or we were talking about information, that there is a percentage of people who just doesn't trust the government for a variety of reasons. What can community play as a role in those situations? I'm very curious about your perspective here.
That's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. When we are practicing with these hubs, we notice that the most vulnerable people, and vulnerable are also people who don't trust the government, for example, are not the ones coming to the hub. So we have to work on a redundant system of information. So it's not about the redundancy of electricity, it's also a society redundancy of information. And we discover there is, from social welfare, are complete networks. And there are key persons in a society, if it's the imam or the sport association. There are so many people, so it's more about creating that network and combining them. So that's what we are practicing now in these pilots, to combine the hubs with these associations and with these key figures. And then we learn that these key figures ask us back, give us some training how to handle this situation. So step by step, we are learning more and more about combining actually the top-down way of organization that we are used to from a crisis management perspective with the bottom-up perspective. that is needed and asked for from out of society. So bringing those two together, that's the big challenge we're facing at the moment, yeah.
And in community level, it's really important to know your community, know where is the people who may be elderly or they need some additional help during crises, and just to hold together, to share supplies, to take care of each other, to know each other. I think this is the really important, because as community it's much more easier to be resilient than just individual, because probably you're missing something, probably someone know how to give a first aid in community, etc., etc. So being together, sharing this knowledge, take care of each other, that it's really important to do in community.
Yeah, I agree that the community perspective is really important, and this is actually a challenge for Sweden, because Sweden culturally and socially is a really individualistic country, and people don't really know their neighbors, and many people live alone, elderly people live alone, and then there was actually recently a campaign that said that say hi to your neighbor because it might save your life in crisis situation. So now there's like campaigns, and this is part of the resilience building, that in Sweden we have to encourage people to be more, aware of their neighbors and people around them, and who to contact and how to pool resources and so on. And I think this is a cultural thing. So for other perhaps nations that are more familiar or have a different family structures where families live often together, or you have relatives close by living together, this is definitely a strength in resilience building. Whereas if you have an individualistic society, it's a challenge.
Well, maybe you can borrow our good example then from the Netherlands. We have municipalities who are funding annual neighborhood barbecues. So that really, it's an annual thing, and it helps to get to know each other. So maybe that's or a fishing outing, I don't know, something. Okay.
Thank you for the question. And now, time has passed. Now that it's not a true or false statement anymore. But it's a statement which you have to agree or disagree with. So in order to motivate people to become resilient, we need to enforce compulsory civil defense service in all our 4 countries. In Sweden, it already is a thing. So instead of compulsory military service, civil defense service. So agree or disagree? Is there anyone who is willing to comment as well?
Yes, my name is Victor. I'm from Moldova, but I'm cooperating with Ukrainian mayors quite a lot. So when I hear this kind of ideas that we don't have to be prepared, I just recall what the mayors during the war, first days and weeks, told me. No one knew anything what to do. It was a lot of people who wanted to help somehow, but not in a systematic framework. Because, for example, we've been to one hospital, and suddenly, 150 people who say that we are doctors and nurses and could help. And in order to help, they made even more problems to the hospital. They came to the hospital with a lot of garbage, which was not used, and the hospital missed the most important elements. So this is so important. And I said yes. Maybe this is not quite okay for someone living in Ischia or in Portugal, but for countries like Moldova, Estonia, our countries, I think it's compulsory. It's exactly as my kid now is playing somewhere there, but he knows the rules of behavior, what will happen. So he knows what to do. So also keep in attention of where we are living. And myself, living from coming here and living here from Moldova during Transnistrian war, where this happens in one night with my family, I'm just asking you, please be prepared. And please make it compulsory as much as possible, and especially in this belt of countries which are neighboring aggressor country. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And while Kadri is...
No, just to give a bit context to this civil conscription thing. In the Swedish constitution since '95, we have the law that says that every citizen between the age of 17 to 60 has a total defense conscription. They have to do that. And that means either on the military side that to do the military conscription or civilian conscription. And this hasn't been activated in recent years for quite a long time. And this is the discussion now in Sweden, is that should it be reactivated? So it's not really an ongoing process yet, but the government is discussing that should we reactivate the compulsory civil conscription? And the reason why is that, as you mentioned also, that people would know what their role is, what to do in a crisis situation. It's also for personnel to have a sustainability in personnel in civil sector, because in military you always have the reserves, or that's the logic that you have reserves that can come in a war situation to play their part. They want to kind of do the same thing on the civilian side, that you have identified what are the vital positions in civil society that need to be filled and need to have people on it. And not only that we have enough people, that we have right people with right skill set. So in that sense, you would do a civil conscription at a specific agency or specific role. For example, one of the things could be that you organize voluntary inputs, during a crisis situation, or depending on what you're good at or what your other job is, to also make it more sustainable system, that you would have people to call into duty that actually have the right skill set. So that's the logic kind of behind the civil conscription duty.
Are you willing?
So, okay. So I work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here, and when you asked this question, I actually found myself very conflicted between whether or not I should raise a green or a red flag, because I think naturally I'm quite suspicious of anything. Anything we make compulsory, I think, should have a very, very good explanation as to why it is necessary. I'm actually not originally from Estonia. I'm from Holland, or the Netherlands, where we don't have a conscription anymore. Although there are discussions, if I've been following the Dutch news accurately, that maybe there are good reasons to reintroduce it. And I think one of the things that comes up a lot is social cohesion. One of the reasons why I admire the fact that Estonia has an active conscription is that it puts people together who would otherwise not really maybe know each other. And not to reuse the seatbelt metaphor, but instead another metaphor. This morning, as we were preparing to come here, we were discussing, should we bring our raincoats, yes or no? And it turns out it was a great idea. So it is always better, I think, to be prepared, to have knowledge and not need it, than to be in a situation where, oh my God, imagine the worst situation comes to pass. At least you know how you should act, rather than being caught totally unawares. And this is why I think it's a good idea to have some kind of mandatory civil resilience, civil resistance course. Of course, we can hash out the details later, what it should look like and what happens if you don't actually attend. Should a person go to jail or pay a fine or whatever? But the fact of the matter is that we live in an entirely different situation. we can go back to 2022 or 2014 or 2008 or 1996. It doesn't really matter. But it's clear that the world that we live in nowadays is completely different from the world I was born in 1992. And so the more we do now, the less difficult it would be in the future to adjust if the worst case scenario comes to pass. God forbid that it is the case, but it's always better to take your raincoat and not need it than not to have a raincoat when there's a storm. Thank you.
We have an extra spot here. You're
Short comment, thank you. I never thought that it has to be compulsory, but now, hearing these ideas, I'm sure it has to be. And know why. In society, we agreed that everybody has to know traffic rules. The same thing. We agreed that everybody has to. Doesn't matter to have license or not. The same thing. You know what to do in some roles. That's it.
Very good. This is becoming very actionable. Yes. So we're going to put together a policy brief. Yeah, Jana, you can do those, right?
I think that it's really important to start learning from the school, even kindergarten. Yeah, some basic stuff from the kindergarten, and it starts from there. And then for these kids, it will be so normal. Like for us, you are crossing road in specific places, which is the crossing roads, and same for them will be how to build resilience and be ready for crises. So everything starts from childhood.
Can I just, the things that you mentioned, knowing what to do, that's a big discussion in Sweden because people want to help. They want to, they want to be involved. And the biggest challenge, not only for individuals, but also for agencies that have to kind of that's, their role in civil defense system. They want to know more clearly what is their role, what is their mandate, who decides, can they decide, or who is the one deciding? And this is a big discussion. In Sweden, in 2023, they restructured the whole civil defense system in hopes that it will make it more clear. It hasn't happened yet, but there's still quite confusion about what are the different roles and the mandates of different actors. And this is a big topic also in conversations between public and private sector. Private sector wants to know, what is their role in total defense system? How much information that they can get? What do they win? If they invest money in securing supply that might never be used, and all this kind of situation. So it's a really important point that you have brought out, that everyone wants to know what their role is. Because people do want to help, and for that system to actually function and for resilience to really be resilience, getting people in right place without creating confusion and unnecessary resources, it's an important part of it. And there's quite a lot of work that needs to be done on this, and also from information domain perspective as well. One of the things that youngsters in Sweden ask is what can we do in a crisis situation using information domain? Because maybe people just by their Facebook account they could be activated to spread a certain information. Our government can take over some communities homepages and forever. So there's a big discussions also about what can we do digitally or in information space, and kind of to also block some kind of disinformation campaigns that would come to escalate the situation. And people do want to know. They ask all the time, what can I do? And it's really important that this kind of roles and mandates become clearer for this system to really work.
An aspect to add to this, because that's a big thing. People want to do stuff. People want to know what they can do. But we also see that people, organizations, governmental organizations, we all have expectations what the other will do, but we don't always check them. That's one of the aspects that we are facing now, that people or organizations think, okay, that person or that organization, they will take care of this, but they never really check. So it's not about only knowing each other face to face. It's about between people, but also knowing what the other can do. So it's about the role, but also checking expectations, because there's a big failure possibility within that part. Not only not knowing each other, but also not checking what you think of what the other will do.
I come back to the individual part. It's also shown in psychological studies that people who think that they are doing something useful in crisis are less afraid. So it helps people to go through the crisis. This is one point why people want to help, and we should know how to use it.
You had a question, comment? Yeah.
I just recalled the situation when the war started in Moldova. So suddenly hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians started to pass through Moldova. So my family personal, we helped 35 families from Ukraine to be sheltered in Moldova, and after that to move further. And you know what was the biggest problem? Not clothes, no food, because immediately, you know, hundreds, thousands of Moldovans, they were going to the borders, waiting for them to come. You know, everyone collected, you know, food and all this kind of stuff. The biggest problem was the simplest, lack of documents. And now imagine, you know, two, three families, they put the kids in the car, they reach the border with Moldova, but Moldovan authorities was unable to put them in because the kids and the adults didn't have the documents to pass. And imagine it was 7, 10, 12, 5 kids without possibility to enter, because it's also a legal framework. If the kids are coming without the documents, who knows who is this kid? His parents has the right, does not have the right. So what I'm going to, my idea is that, you know, we think that we are ready for the basic stuff, but we are not ready, because this happens in one moment. And this was the biggest problem, and still now we have problems with the kids which pass through Moldova, and after that they was passing further to European Union without the documents. And we have many cases like that, that the kids does not have documents. So preparedness for this basic stuff in this element is crucial. And I will fully agree with you. The same mayors in Ukrainian institutions, they just told me and us things like that, you know, it's a lot of people who want to help, but they don't know exactly what to do. We don't know what to do, they don't know what to do, and this is a total house. Just to add this idea about document, I think it's important.
Mm-hmm. So if you have small children, get them documents. So now we have 4 minutes for, so which single indicator, now you have to choose, measuring, we're going to measure now the resilience, yeah. So which single indicator would tell you from 1 year from now that societal resilience has actually improved?
If we actually do the barbecue in Sweden.
One barbecue per Sweden.
And I actually witness neighbors talking to each other.
Okay. Good.
It's hard to choose only one, but I will choose giving the first aid. And it's practical for everyday life also.
Mika will probably say yes, that's a good idea, right?
I will also say yes, that's a good idea. But for self-preparedness in Finland, we have quite a big difference between the countryside and in the big cities. The people who are live in the countryside or in the archipelago are used that they need some supplies. But in big cities, there is a electrical disruption about 2 hours, and there's a amazing chaos. So my punchline to this would be we could even this difference.
I also have a really specific example of 1 year from now. Lund University has a master's program starting now for total defense and civil preparedness education for also targeting people in private sector or practitioners or agency people, not only university students. And that starts in September. So in 1 year from September, we will have in Sweden at least 43 people that have been educated in total defense and particularly civil defense. So, yeah.
Wow, really cool. Yeah, I find this one really hard, really hard. It's about knowledge, it's about being aware, but how to, you as the one with the knowledge, awareness.
She needs learning analytics.
Yes, I'm learning a lot. But how to measure this awareness, that's something I'm really curious about, if we get tools for that. Because we have the leaflet, but it's not only about having the kid in the house, it's not about having the food and some cash and some documents. It's about people talking about this and people making decisions together, like what to do. But that's a hard thing to measure.
I have a tool for that. Let's talk afterwards. Okay, so we have now a policy brief. We know what to measure. And there's 1 minute, so we thank you. And if you have any more questions directly to the panelists, then we're going to that tent. Yeah, all of us. So feel free to get closer and ask. And at least Erkki knows CPR, right? Yeah, so probably you as well, right? Yeah. So we're in safe hands. Thank you.